Hello and welcome to the In the Pen podcast, a podcast about relievers, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. My name is Jake Crumpler, and as always, I'm joined by Pitcher List bullpen expert Rick Graham. Rick, we're both guys with facial hair. I think that's pretty apparent. If it's not apparent, then you're clearly listening on the podcast platform. Make sure to tune in live on YouTube, where you can see our beautiful faces and, of course, our beautiful facial hair. But Rick, how often do you shave? How long have you had a beard for? You ever considered going straight clean shaven back again?
Yeah, so the last time I was clean shaven, I think was 2016, when I was working for a college baseball program, and we all decided to be clean shaven for our team picture and whatnot. And I looked like I was 14 years old, and I hated it. And I'm very, I don't know. I just said I like having the beard. It's just gives me, I don't know, makes me feel older, I guess, or I don't know, if more distinguished. I don't know, but yeah, it looks just like really weird and young without the beard. I mean, I usually trim it once or twice a week. Try to keep it around the same length. But yeah, that's pretty much how. I don't do anything too crazy with it. I don't use like products or anything. I know that's a lot of people do.
Yeah, I was considering that too. I think for maybe Christmas last year or my birthday a year ago or so, I asked my mom to get me I don't know, some sort of oil for my mustache. I didn't even use it. I'm too scared. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, is it going to be noticeable? I don't really want it to be noticeable, but maybe I do. And if it's good noticeable,
Yeah.
Yeah. Twice a week seems like a lot, but I guess that means your hair's growing fast.
Yeah, it
keep
depends.
it maintained.
Yeah, it depends. I guess it depends on what the week's looking like. But yeah, it does grow. My hair does grow pretty fast. So, if I want to have it look kind of cleaned up, it probably has to be twice a week. But usually it's once a week, unless there's I've got like meetings or something that I need to see people face to face.
Sure. How often do you get your head hair cut?
That my hair grows really fast too. I usually no more than 3 months. I'll let it go. I know you were just saying it's been 2 years for you, which is
a year and a half. Yeah.
Wild to me. I don't mind when my hair gets longer. It does get a little bit, it just kind of annoys me sometimes, especially in the summertime. It's all right, it's hot. I don't want this hair in my eyes and sweat. I already sweat enough as it is. It's so I usually try to keep it pretty low in the spring, summer. So 2 to 3 months, which is annoying because it does add up financially. But yeah,
totally. Yeah, unless you're going to Great Clips every time, which by your haircut suggests that you're getting a nicer haircut than Great Clips. Not to say anything against Great Clips, where I got my haircut for 20 years, and now see, this is what happens when the guy that works at Great Clips, who cuts my hair for 20 years, stops working there. This is what happens.
Yeah.
The hardest part is honestly eating. When you've got a mustache and then I've got long hair like this, and I'm trying to eat a sandwich, and it's just all right, you want a mouthful of hair before as the appetizer to this bite of sandwich?
Right. Yeah. No, I could not. I would lose my mind. I can't.
And then you got to napkin it all off every time too, because now you've got the whole sandwich in your mustache, which is cool for next time when you're hungry later. But yeah, not cool if you're at work or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, facial hair has certainly got its positives and negatives, where you're sort of battling with I like how I look. I feel like an adult, but also it's a lot of work to maintain. Because if you don't maintain it, then you'll just look a lot less of an adult. You'll look, like you're not taking care of yourself, which is something not adults do. So yeah, but we're not here to talk about facial hair. We're here to talk about relief pitchers. And so on our show today, we'll talk about the news, injuries, and transactions from the past week. Then we'll get into the 3 up, 3 down section, where we discuss the closers rising and falling on Rick's closer ranks. And then lastly, we'll close things out with our main topic as we revisit some breakout relievers from earlier in the season and determine, hey, are these guys players that we can continue to ride with through the year? Is this breakout legit? And will it continue throughout the second half of the season? But let's hop right in, starting with the news, as Raisel Iglesias seems to be out of the closer role in Atlanta. We talked a little bit about this last week when it was sort of like at the very beginnings of that, where Iglesias had been blowing saves. Craig Kimbrell was brought into town. There was all this movement. Roster Resources got 4 guys as the closer. Who knows? But right now, Brian Snitker is saying Iglesias may close games, but won't be the primary closer moving forward. So really, I guess the question for you, Rick, is who's up next?
Yeah, I guess we haven't seen anyone get a save. They did try Pierce Johnson over the weekend, I believe it was, in San Francisco, and he gave up a walk-off home run to Matt Chapman.
Oof.
And I think when we were talking about this, I want to say last week, like, you know, the thing with Pierce Johnson is he's kind of just like Luke Jackson, but like a little bit better. You know, only really has a curveball. Fastball gets hammered. He's not great against lefties. So I don't know, even though Matt Chapman's a righty who hit his curveball for a home run, but it was watching that, it was like predictable he was going to throw a curveball in the situation. So it, you know, I feel like the last 2 times in the 9th where there wasn't a safe situation, but it was, you know, potentially a safe situation. The games were close enough when Dylan Lee was warming up or went into the game. And I feel like Dylan Lee, I mean, left-handed, sure, that might not be. And I feel like Brian Snitker could be like an anti-lefty, just kind of that old school type of guy. But I don't know. Dylan Lee is good against lefties and righties equally. He's been their most consistent reliever this year, maybe the last 2 years. Honestly, yeah. I mean, Iglesias was awesome last year. So if it wasn't for him, I would say Lee was, you know, their best reliever last year. But yeah, until you know, as far as righties go, it's like Iglesias and Pierce Johnson, and then, you know, kind of a rotating group of, was Craig Kimbrell for a day, and now it's not even sure who's up there. They got rid of Scott Blewett after one bad outing. He was pitching really well up until that outing too.
Hard to employ a reliever named Blewett.
It's tough. I know. I get it. But yeah, I feel like Lee, I mean, Aaron Bummer maybe too, but Bummer's probably, I think this gives Lee a chance to close because they have Bummer as their lefty, out, you know, their other lefty. So I think Lee's the favorite for saves here at the time being. It seems like Iglesias is going to stick in a high leverage role. He's been pitching the 8th inning. So probably, like, if they get a close lead going into the 7th inning, you'll probably see Bummer to Iglesias to lead to end the game, which not what they thought going into the season, but I think that should be fine for them. I mean, I'm sure Pierce Johnson will still factor into maybe Pierce Johnson or Bummer in the 7th, depending on left-right situation.
All right. Well, I guess this is a great transition into our first injury, as Daysbel Hernandez was placed on the 15-day IL with forearm inflammation. Craig Kimbrell was selected from the minors in a surprise corresponding move, and the next day he was DFA'd. It was very, very funny. Very, I don't know, sort of Craig Kimbrell-esque. Jose Ruiz was then claimed off waivers from the Phillies, so he's now in that Atlanta bullpen. But when Hernandez returns, do you think he's somebody who is probably going to factor into that 9th inning, maybe push Lee a little bit? Because he's been incredible this year. We know he's been one of the most lucky relievers in baseball, but he has pitched really well, and he is right-handed.
Yeah, I it's hard to, I mean, it could be partially to do with the injury, but he was starting to show some cracks. That luck was starting to wear off for Daysbel. He does have a really good fastball though. It's like, for him, it's kind of, he's like, Pierce Johnson is like a rich man's Luke Jackson, and like Hernandez is like a poor man's Robert Suarez, where it's, you know, really a fastball he's working with, but it's not as good as Robert Suarez fastball, but it's a pretty good fastball. It's been working this year until, you know, a couple weeks ago, but just being right-handed, yeah, it's like, you know, he's right behind Iglesias with Pierce Johnson as like the next man up. So and Hernandez is still young. I mean, he's definitely got a potential as a, you know, has potential to be a closer down the road, but you know, already dealing with a forearm injury, and just this year, it's, you know, there's no secondary. He's been really lucky. I'm not sure how much more value we get from him, even in holds leagues down, you know, the rest of the way, but we'll see. It depends on when he comes back what the situation is, because they might still be looking for a closer at that point.
Totally. And with Kimbrel sort of being cast off by the Braves, the Rangers claimed him. Do you think there is even like you know, less than 1% chance? Uh,
It's,
I'm not going to put that on you that he maybe is the closer,
yeah,
but that he makes the roster at some point later.
it is. I mean, it is a situation where, yeah, I mean, there's still some uncertainty as far as what's going on in the back end,
Mhm.
moving forward there. So, non-zero chance that he ends up closing out games for Texas. I wouldn't
Wow.
bet on it, but
No.
I mean, his velo's way down. He might be able to survive. I think he was like 91 is the one outing he pitched in Atlanta. And I
Oh,
know
great.
people were like panicking and going like crazy. It's like it's Craig Kimbrell in 2025. I mean,
Yeah. What'd you expect?
it's not,
Yeah.
they're not DFAing, Josh Hader or something. It's just
Mhm.
this is a guy who's not the same guy he used to be. So I bet you he gets called up, though. But Texas could probably use some arms at some point. So he'll probably get another look in the majors.
All right. That's Craig Kimbrell as a result of all this movement in Atlanta. Next, we'll move to Arizona, where we have plenty of bullpen movement as well. Kendall Graveman was placed on the 15-day IL with a hip impingement, and then Christian Montes de Oca was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move, and then subsequently placed on the 15-day IL with forearm inflammation, and he joined a larger member of that bullpen. And I don't mean physically, I just mean in terms of role. Justin Martinez was placed on the 15-day IL with a sprained UCL. When it happened, he called for the trainer after throwing a pitch and was taken off the field after grabbing at his elbow. And he recently, just a few weeks ago, was shut down from throwing after displaying huge declines in velocity. So this really is looking like Martinez is going to need some sort of surgery or at least a
Yeah,
very extended absence, but he's getting a second opinion, which is,
second.
not great news. But in a
Yeah,
corresponding move, Kevin Ginkel, Bryce Jarvis, and Taylor Scott will join the Diamondbacks bullpen.
to say we haven't heard about that second opinion yet. I'm sure this weekend we'll hear. It's probably not going
Nothing
to be
great.
good. It's probably going to be
No.
like he's seeing what Keith Meister.
Mhm.
Uh, that's always like when a tweet starts like that. It's like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's going to be Tommy John. So yeah, I mean that's really unfortunate. And at least he was able to, I guess, get a contract signed before um this happens.
Yeah.
So but we very high likelihood we're not seeing Justin Martinez again until 2027, which is terrible for us
Yeah.
as a bullpen podcast because yeah, he's definitely one of the more fun relievers
Mhm.
in baseball. Yeah, and now this bullpen was already bad. We talked about bullpens last week, and Arizona's one of last week they were one of like 3 or 4 bullpens that had like a negative WAR combined. So losing Martinez, I know Puck might be back in July. Hopefully that gives them some hope. But Kevin Ginkel needs to get right. He needs to be.
Mhm.
He's getting called up, but he's gonna probably get thrown right into a high leverage mix because it's gonna be Shelby Miller closing out games, and Miller's been really good. He's been. I mean, that signing, which he got what, like 1.5 million or something, like very low.
Couldn't be too much more than that. It
Yeah,
looks like
so
it was 1 million.
1 million, and that's the saving their bullpen right now. That's the
Yeah.
glue. That's the glue to their bullpen because without him, it gets really, really dicey. I'm guessing Ryan Thompson ends up in the 8th inning.
Mhm. Jalen Beeks a little bit.
Jalen Beeks will get mixed in. Yeah, it's not a bullpen that's. It was a strength at the beginning of the season with Martinez and Puck healthy, and now it's dire situation. So hopefully Ginkle can turn things around and at least give them a solid 8th, 7th inning guy, and Miller continues to throw the way he has. So, but if they're sellers at the deadline, then they should at least get a good piece for Miller and possibly Ginkle too if they wanted to move him.
Yeah. But yeah, really decimated by injuries there in Arizona with Puck already out and now 3 more guys heading to the IL, with one of them likely being for the rest of the season. That's Justin Martinez. Our last injury involves Manuel Rodriguez, who was placed on the 15-day IL with a forearm strain. Cole Sulser was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move, but Rodriguez had been pretty integral to that Rays bullpen, pitching to a 2.08 ERA with 11 holds on the season. But with him out, I think we'll see Edwin Uceta used more so in high leverage traditional role where he's pitching 1 inning. And it looks like Eric Orrs may continue to climb up that ladder.
Yeah, I hope that's another guy, Manuel Rodriguez. I've been like, searching his name today, trying to figure out what, because a forearm strain again. That's like, is it like, are we talking about surgery or is it just like a minor thing? There hasn't really, I haven't been able to find anything on Rodriguez. Hopefully it's minor. Yeah, he's really having a good year. I mean, I always think when I see his name and like Daniel Palencia and Jeremiah Estrada, how fun the Cubs bullpen could be if they still had like those 3 guys, because
Hunter Biggie,
but like Rodriguez and Estrada, they just gave up on.
Totally.
Just let go. So yeah, Rodriguez was, he was their top set. I mean, Edwin Uceta struggled all year. Mason Montgomery struggled all year. It's been Rodriguez kind of bridging that gap to Pete Fairbanks. So they're still been leaning on Uceta despite his issues, and I guess that's fine. It's to some degree Mason Montgomery too. So yeah, those guys will still have to step up with Rodriguez out, and Orzi's an interesting, kind of was somewhat of a relief prospect, I think with the Mets a couple years ago. So he's been pitching well for them. Another name to keep an eye on.
All right. Well, that will wrap up our injuries. Now we'll talk about some transactions, but first we're going to take a quick break here on In the Pen. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here with Rick Graham on In the Pen discussing relievers. We just wrapped up our injuries and are now moving into our transactions. And we'll start with the Dodgers as they activated Michael Kopech from the 60-day IL. He'd been out with forearm inflammation. And they also activated Kirby Yates from the 15-day IL. He had been out with a hamstring strain, but huge reinforcements to the Dodgers bullpen, which had been dealing with a copious amount of injuries. I think, honestly, like, of course, Yates and Kopech returning are huge for shaking up the high leverage situation. But I think the biggest result from this is Ben Kasperius going back to the rotation, because he was so locked down as a reliever and he was required to be used as a high leverage guy because they didn't have their usual high leverage arms like Kopech and Yates. But with those guys back as right-handers as well, that allows Kasperius to move back in the rotation and removes his ability to be a significant contributor out of the Dodgers bullpen.
For now, but as I kind of feel bad for Kasperius, because he's got a rotation spot now, but then what happens when those guys like Snell and Glasnow
snap,
he's gonna go, but he's even gonna have a spot in the bullpen. Like when the Dodgers bullpen is fully healthy, I don't even know, because a lot of those guys don't have options or anything either.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's and when the Dodgers bullpen is fully healthy is kind of an oxymoron, because it's not going to be. We know Trinan's going to be out for a little while. I think Phillips is still a ways away as well. So
Kasperius has all 3 of his options.
Right. So him and Jack Dreyer might be like the odd guys out, even though they've been pitching well. But that's if that team ever gets healthy on the mound. So
yeah.
I mean, Kasperius definitely deserves a role somewhere. I gave up on him in TGFBI because I was thinking he was going to be a starter. Then he didn't. He moved to the bullpen. I'm like, all right, I'm going to drop him. And now I wish I kind of still had him, because I think he's going to be a really good starter.
Yeah, his stuff's incredible.
Yeah, so Yates will probably pretty much like slides into what the role he was in, I guess, is like one of their 7th, 8th inning setup guys. Kopech, it's he's only pitched in his 2 outings. They've been very different. He walked 3 in his last time out. Obviously, command's been an issue for him in the past as well. The velo looks mostly this, like, where it was last year, so that's a good sign. But for holds leagues, I'm a little bit more tentative on Kopech. Kind of want to see a couple, a week or 2 from him at least, see where he's at, because we've only seen a little over half a year of Michael Kopech as a good reliever in the major league level. So coming back from this long of an injury, we're not, who knows what we're going to see from him.
Totally. Yeah. And forearm inflammation is always scary, any sort of forearm injury. So I agree. Got to be a little wary of Kopech, but his stuff is so good. So I'm excited to see what he can do for that Dodgers team. Hopefully it's a lot of bad. Just kidding. Next, we have Danny Coulomb, who was activated from the 15-day IL by the Twins. He had been out with a forearm extensor strain, and he should return to being one of the most trusted options in that bullpen, especially from the left side as the only southpaw in the Minnesota bullpen.
Yeah, it's a low, like kind of a low key name that's coming back off the IL that
Yeah,
is worth monitoring and holds leagues because he was pitching really well before going on the IL. And
perfect
he's
ERA.
yeah, they're top left Twins top lefty. But the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit with him. But you know, if you're in a holds league, you're probably able to pick up guys off waivers, so you can take a chance on Coolion. He should go right back into picking up holds as their top lefty, and yeah, he's been awesome this year, as he was
All
last
right.
year and the year before.
Yeah, that's Danny Coulomb. Like I said, pristine ERA prior to going on the IL, and he did return through a couple pitches and maintain the pristine ERA. So Danny Coulomb probably should be rostered in the majority of holds leagues. Next, this will be a quick one. Forrest Whitley was DFA'd. I think this will put the kibosh on us ever talking about him again. I kept bringing him up whenever they brought him up because I was like, he used to be so big. He used to be a big prospect, and then it was like he never did anything, and now it's like, not even the Astros want him anymore.
Someone's gonna take a chance.
Oh, for sure. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
The
Guy
A's
can't stay healthy.
I know. The A's should, but they're not exactly the best at pitching development.
Yeah.
Maybe this is someone the Rays go after with losing Rodriguez if they think that's going to be long term. Whitley could be a fun project for them. That's a guy.
Would. The thing is with the Rays though, they love guys that they can say, hey, like do all this like to the best of your ability, and we don't care if you get injured because then we've got another guy to come up. But they do that with Whitley. He's just going to snap right away, and they're going to be like, oh, well, don't do that. Actually,
it costs them nothing though, basically.
Totally.
So,
I don't think they shouldn't do it because of that, but I'm worried that somebody who is as off injured as he would be going to a team that sort of produces more injuries as a result of the way that they train their pitchers, I think would be not ideal for Whitley. But hey, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we've got Grant Taylor, who was selected from the minors by the White Sox. He's been one of their top pitching prospects over the past couple of years. I know Nick was super hyped on him in spring training, and he came up and made his debut a couple of days ago on Tuesday and recorded a hold in his debut. So that suggests that the White Sox, or at least White Sox management, think of him very highly. So Grant Taylor looking like he could start factoring into that closer situation if he can really settle in quickly in Chicago.
Yeah. There's not a lot of competition in front of him. Steven Wilson's not much of a factor. Jordan Leisure's started off pretty hot. He's struggled lately. I guess it depends on the White Sox, how aggressive they want to be with a rookie getting saves and jacking up his arbitration costs. I do think, is he like Mason Miller? Is he going to be stuck in the bullpen, or is he going to be, move back into the rotation at some point? Because I know there's injury concerns with him as well. Anyone who throws this hard, it's like Ben Joyce or,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough, because I don't know if he's worth rostering right now in like a 12-teamer, because it's A, the White Sox, and B, we don't know the role yet. And we get hyped about rookie relievers or rookies in general, and like Craig Yoho, and that didn't work out. It's exciting. He throws hard. He's a really good stuff, but I'm not sure what his role will be, and just if the White Sox are even worth chasing at this point.
Yeah, I haven't watched him pitch yet, but the sort of trajectory reminds me of like Yohan Duran, where the stuff is undeniable and they just don't really work out in the rotation. Because I remember Yohan Duran when he was coming up, and I was like, this guy just throws 100 miles per hour and he's just a starter, and like that's fine. And then it wasn't fine because he can't stay healthy. So I'm like, okay, I could see that. We've had this a lot. I don't think we really. Yeah, just like the exactly like guys coming up as starters and then transitioning to the bullpen before even giving the opportunity. Yeah. And it seems weird. It seems like something you wouldn't do if you were managing your team in like MLB The Show or whatever. You're not going to take, your top pitching prospect and make him a reliever. But we've seen it work so many times, and we know that teams really value relievers pretty highly. So guys like Josh Hader and Mason Miller and Yohan Duran, if they're able to reach the ceiling that they can with the stuff that they have, that they wouldn't be close to reaching as a starter, I think it works really well. So I see how this could work for Grant Taylor. Obviously, that trajectory won't be
Garrett,
determined until next year.
maybe like a Garrett Crochet path,
Sure.
which the White Sox did, and
Exactly.
a couple years in the bullpen. Then we'll talk about see him healthy in the bullpen. Then we'll talk about moving him back to the rotation.
Yeah, because
But
he's still only 23.
yeah, he's young. I mean, he's obviously their most talented reliever right now. So yeah, maybe they see him as more of their Mason Miller. So maybe that's what this or Yohan Duran. So maybe that's what this turns out to be.
Start him out of the bullpen, see what they got, and then go from there.
Right.
Yeah, I think Crochet, that's actually, with the White Sox and everything, that makes a lot of sense because they did that and they were just like, okay, let's pitch him out of the bullpen until he gets hurt. And then when he comes back, we'll make him a starter.
Right. Yeah. I think, he might need to learn a third pitch too. He'll be great as a reliever for now. Definitely. Like if you're in a HELSLEY, if you're in a dynasty league, if he's still hanging around somehow, he's worth an ad, for sure.
Yeah. Poor Freelander Baroa, man.
Yeah, right. I know. Like Baroa, I mean, they've had some leisure. I mean, they've had some names kind of come up and be exciting, but no one like Grant Taylor, not in a while. So
totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's exciting for the White Sox remaining in the AL Central. Lucas Erceg was activated from the 15-day IL. He'd been out with a lower back strain, and he'll return to being the top setup man to closer Carlos Estevez in Kansas City.
Yeah, he was pitching well. He wasn't like overpowering before he got hurt. The back strains are always kind of tricky too, but I do think he slides right back in. There's no one else. It's John Schreiber and Daniel Lynch / Angel Zerpa were kind of taking over setup duties. So Erceg should slide right back into that 8th inning role. And yeah, I mean, he's a top 25 holds candidate for sure, without a doubt. So if you were, I guess just as he was before he got hurt, that's where he is now. Nothing really changes there.
Okay, and our last transaction involves Jorge Alcala, who was traded from the Twins to the Red Sox yesterday in return for Andy Lugo. Very interesting. We talked a little bit about it before we hit record, and I think we were both excited that it's always interesting when a reliever gets traded, especially to the team you root for, but it's super awesome when it's one that we've talked so highly about over the past couple of years, as Alcala certainly has some incredible stuff, but really hasn't had the opportunity, I felt like, in Minnesota to really establish himself. So hopefully in Boston, Alcala gets that opportunity.
Yeah, I hope. I'm excited as a Red Sox fan to get like this type of talent. I mean, it's not really a long-term play, but we'll see with it, what they can do with them. Their Sox have been really good with getting the best out of relievers, breaking stuff. So we know Alcala throws hard. Hopefully we can, get better results from his slider and curveball as well. Greg Weisert's been their 7th, 8th inning guy with Justin Slayton out. So, I mean, and Weisert's been pitching really well, but wouldn't be crazy to see Alcala kind of start seeing holds in the next couple weeks if he, pitches well and acclimates himself. So definitely more opportunity. Yeah, that Twins bullpen, as we talked about, was loaded. Even if he was pitching great, I don't even know if he would have factored into a ton of any holds either.
Yeah.
So good fresh start for Alcala. Hopefully the Sox can get him going.
Yeah, looks to be a win-win for both sides. All right, that will wrap up our transactions and injuries from the past week. Now we'll head into our 3 up, 3 down section and discuss the closers rising and falling on Rick's weekly closer ranks. We'll start it off with our risers, opening with David Bednar, who has had a very solid season for the Pirates. We've talked about him a lot, and I think deservedly so. In the past, it was not really positive, especially to open the season. And then we had, or at least I did a whole Don Kelly bit for a couple of weeks. That's over now. Don't worry. It was fun while it lasted. But David Bednar seems to be solid. Like ever since returning from the IL, there were questions about how he was going to be used, but he's really established himself as the Pirates closer. And to me, there's no question about, who's in charge, David Bednar or Dennis Santana. It's Bednar. Yeah,
I think the last 2 weeks have proven it's Bednar's role. And he's been, since he came back from AAA, he's been, I mean, arguably a top 5 reliever in baseball. This is like better than the David Bednar we saw before, in 2023. This is, I have going back to the past month. He's got a .94 whip, 1.68 Sierra, 38% K rate, 4% walk
Whoa,
rate.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and he's just what we talked about is being able to at least show that you can throw your breaking ball and his splitter as well. Just being able to show he can throw it for a strike.
Mhm.
Has been a huge game changer for him. And now I do have not concerns, but like once hitters start realizing like they, all right, he is gonna be able to throw his curveball, for a strike. Now we might see, because his called strike rate has been like what's kind of boosting his bat missing ability right now. His swinging strike rate's still kind of low comparatively to other closers, but I don't know. I like what Bednar is doing right now. I'm not going to worry too much about that. He made the adjustment right now. If he needs to make another adjustment, I'm sure he's able to do that. So, yeah, really excited about Bednar. He's been awesome since he came back from AAA. And yeah, it's still weird to think that he got demoted in the first place, because that was kind of it was obviously not a great first week for him, but it was just a weird set of circumstances to everything. So,
I mean, both of the last 2 seasons have sort of been similar, where like 2024, Bednar opened the season not on the injured list, but like on the bullpen bench, where they didn't want to pitch him until he was ready to go.
He's not healthy, but he's not hurt enough to
yeah. But it was just like a little bit. And so like the last 2 seasons have sort of had that weird opening where it was just like, okay, so you guys don't like him? Oh, okay. I thought he was like your favorite reliever, but okay, I guess you guys don't really like him. Clearly, Bednar is the Pirates' favorite reliever, and it looks like he's going to lock down this role through the rest of the season. Well, they never extended him, did they? Is he going to get traded?
Him and Santana are both free agents after 2026. So obviously they can keep both for next season, or they could move him a year early and probably they'll get a better return. And especially if Bednar keeps going on this run through the next month, I think the Pirates need to strongly consider moving him, because, seeing what he's doing, seeing like the metrics, the peripherals, I think teams are going to be really excited about David Bednar at the deadline.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Our next riser is AROLDIS CHAPMAN, who has been very solid as the Red Sox closer all year long, but he's locked down 3 saves across the past week, lowering his ERA to 1.59 to give him 12 saves on the season and a 35.5% strikeout rate. Incredible work from AROLDIS CHAPMAN this year. Honestly, one of his better seasons.
It really has been
at this advanced age. It's pretty incredible.
I haven't even looked at his pitcher list player page is very bright red.
Nice.
It is crazy to see how he's aged. He is kind of a freak. Where it comes like 37, he's throwing harder than he had. He's missing. This might be his best season. But he's only got 11 saves. I know that's kind of frustrating, but taking into consideration where you were drafting him, this has been an awesome season. You're getting a lot of value from him. Another guy who I don't know, follow the Red Sox closely, obviously being in Boston. I don't know where they're headed. They say that the report came out today saying that they're going to be buyers, but they have to also be realistic. So maybe Chapman also becomes an option at the deadline. I mean, I feel like he's been traded like the last couple of trade. The Pittsburgh hung on to him for whatever reason, didn't they? But yeah, there's some potential trade value. If I were the Red Sox, if I'm the Red Sox and they're 7 games out and end of July, I think I would move him. So yeah, but he's been worth the value where you got him this year. And yeah, there's no like the walk rate being at 8.7%, which is like kind of high for some people, but for Chapman that's like glorious.
Crazy.
It's perfect. That's where like he's gonna be awesome with that walk rate as is.
Yeah, pretty incredible season from AROLDIS CHAPMAN thus far. Our last riser is EMILIO PAGAN, who is sort of doing the same thing. He's a guy who's been struggled with home runs throughout his career, but going to Cincinnati, you're thinking, okay, he's going to be awful because that place is awesome for home runs. But Pagan has been great this year. I mean, the ERA has inflated a little bit, but I think it's nice to sort of see it at 3.5 right now because that feels normal. Like, I don't know. When I got a guy with a sub-2 ERA, I'm like, God, do I even want this guy on my team? Because it's going to blow up at some point, right? But like Pagan, it's like, okay, he's settled in. This is where he's going to be at throughout the year. Like, it's not going to be, roses and daisies throughout the rest of the year, but I think he's going to be solid. He's already got 16 saves. He's striking out more batters than ever.
Yeah.
Pagan seems to be settling in as a really lockdown closer in Cincinnati.
Yeah, the key for me is like the strikeouts have been nice, but like that whip being low, hard hit data has been pretty good, pretty beneficial towards him. Because yeah, those home runs, the home runs are going to happen. He'll catch a barrel every now and then. But as long as he's not walking guys, the bases are empty. Like we can probably survive some solo home runs. So. It's like, yeah, there's been times this year, like once or twice at least, where it's like, he might be slipping, might start like, fading out of that role, but he keeps bouncing back nicely. And the Reds don't have, there's really no one else I can think the Reds, closing games for the Reds right now. So
yeah,
Pagan seems safe and pretty consistent and steady right now. It's been a solid season for him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't get fooled by the 167 BABIP. Obviously, that's a little bit low, maybe a lot a bit low, but the thing is, Pagan is a fly ball pitcher, and fly ball pitchers are going to have low BABIPs because the ball's going in the air. The catch probability is much higher. However, that means he's a guy who gives up a lot of home runs. But if you look at where that home run to fly ball rate is, it's at 21% right now, which is in the 34th percentile. So he's unlucky in the home run department, lucky in the BABIP department. It'll even out a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be so crazy that Pagan all of a sudden has an ERA over 4 or whatever.
It's not Jeff Hoffman unlucky.
No,
but yeah, Jeff Hoffman's home run rate right now is
oh my gosh,
insane.
everything.
Yeah.
But I think Pagan is going to be solid. Maybe the whip rises a little bit and the ERA stabilizes around 3.5, but I still think he's going to be solid this year.
Yeah.
All right. As those guys rise up the ranks, others need to fall to accommodate them. So our first faller is Mason Miller, who just cannot get back on track this season. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago, and he just has not been able to lock things down. ERA still over 4.5. Strikeout rate is still incredible, but Mason Miller sort of given us some scares that maybe he's not that top 5 closer we expected at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he's been vulnerable. The walk rate shot up. The command, it's control and command issues kind of with him. And yeah, we've talked about him a little bit and his struggles. It's not really anything actionable. I think you just if you roster him, you hang on and hope he turns things around. If you don't roster him, I don't think I would pay. It's still going to probably cost a lot to buy in. I don't think anyone's selling low. So yeah, there's he hasn't been able to get ahead of hitters like he used to last year. I've noticed that's a big issue with him. His stuff's so good. He might be trying a little bit too hard to just like locate, pinpoint command, but she just like get ahead, don't be afraid. And he also throwing more sliders first pitch could help, maybe work backwards a little bit. I don't know. But just getting ahead of hitters will, that's the one issue I kind of see with him right now. So the stuff's still there. Stuff's still pretty good. I mean, the fastball is obviously hard, but it doesn't have great metrics. So
yeah,
there is that. But I mean, we've seen the strikeout rate's still 42%. He's still able to miss bats. So just get that command under control and he should be okay.
Yeah, totally. That seems like a fair assessment. Yeah, would love to see the walks get in control. Right now, 4% increase in his walk rate over last season. Definitely been very unlucky in the hotel trio, but nonetheless, I think some of it is a little bit deserved because you don't just get away with walking 4% more batters.
Yeah, this feels like almost like a Devin Williams type struggles where it's like the walks and a bad luck and something. I feel like Miller can turn this around pretty quickly as long as he get that walk rate back under 10%.
All right. Next, we've got Ryan Helsley, who's blown each of his last 3 saves, inflating his ERA to 3.75, and while producing just 26% strikeout rate. Not a great season from Helsley, and he appears to be on a downward trend.
Yeah, it's obviously the last 3 games blowing saves is not a good look, but I still have some hope for him. I think the stuff is still there. It's not like he's lost a ton of velo or anything. I think this is kind of where last year he was very lucky. He did give up a lot of hard contact last year. He's giving up a lot of hard contact again this year. It's just finding the ground. It's finding, grass, or the bleachers.
Yeah.
The walk rate hasn't been great. Obviously that could do better. And he is not missing it. He's not missing as many bats this year as well. It's partially unlucky, partially, I think, just this just a little bit, overrated from last year. I feel like when we talked about him at the beginning of the season as being a potential, as being a fade, because there's no way he was getting 49 saves again, and it's he's not Josh Hader or Edwin Diaz or Emmanuel Clase, where the consistency's never been there for him. He's been really good in the past, but he's always had some sort of health issues here and there. So now he's another guy who could be traded. I know the Cardinals are still obviously in the playoff hunt. They're playing well for the most part, so maybe they hold on to HELSLEY, especially if his value's taking a hit. Maybe they just decide to ride it out, see if they can make a playoff run. But yeah, between him and Phil Maton, two guys who they could both get probably a pretty good return for at the deadline. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, he's not trending in the right direction. The strikeout minus walk rate over the past couple of years is pretty notable. If you start in his breakout 2022 campaign, 31% strikeout minus walk rate. Then 2023, he was all the way down to 24, which is still elite, still really good. And last year, still awesome at 21%, but this year all the way down below 15%. A 14% strikeout minus walk rate is not elite, and nor is it good. And it's a huge departure from where HELSLEY was before, where he was a high strikeout guy and could make up for his lack of control. But now we're seeing the control get worse. He's getting hit harder. It's all a bad recipe for HELSLEY to remain as the closer.
The swing and strike and CSW match up the strikeout rate too. That swing and strike's down like 4% from last year. CSW is down 5% from last year, and the years before that prior to. So it does not look good from where he was at previously. So I mean there could be a switch here soon if he Phil Maton's been pitching really good. If HELSLEY has another blown save this weekend, I mean, what do? They might have to make a switch.
They might. Keep an eye on that situation in Seattle. Our last faller is Robert Garcia, who's taken over as the closer in Texas with Luke Jackson struggling and Chris Martin on the IL. Martin's back, but Garcia has maintained the closer role. Just one save in the past week. So why is he a faller for you, Rick?
I mean, he's been a little hit or miss since he took over the closer role. And even going into that, he was... last year he was very unlucky. This year I feel like he's been lucky. It's kind of flipped. So I feel like Chris Martin's still their best reliever. I know he doesn't want to close, or they don't want him to close, whatever it is. But Chris Martin's their best reliever. He's now back off the IL. I just do wonder if he does get a chance to close out games. Does it make sense because he's their best reliever, and Garcia is a lefty who can match up better against lefties, while you have other guys in that bullpen who can match up against righties and whatnot. So I don't know. I just personally like Martin as the potential closer here, and worried about Garcia's, how strong his job security is. But it might take a couple blows. I mean, Bruce Bochy, once he has a guy, it's like took Luke Jackson forever. I mean, Luke Jackson had to do a lot to lose that job. So maybe the same goes with Garcia now. Maybe.
I don't know. Can't forget about Jacob Webb. He throws gas. All right. That will wrap up our 3 up, 3 down section. To recap, our risers were David Bednar, AROLDIS, CHAPMAN, and EMILIO PAGAN. And our fallers were Mason Miller, Ryan HELSLEY, and Robert Garcia. Next, we'll move on into our main topic and discuss some breakout relievers from 2025. But first, we're going to take a second break here on In the Pen. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here with Rick Graham on In the Pen discussing relief pitchers. We're heading into our main topic and revisiting some breakout relievers that maybe we've talked about early in the season or we haven't had a chance to fully dive into. And we're going to try to determine if these are guys that we can trust to continue to perform throughout the rest of the season. So we'll be looking at some lesser known names because these are, relievers that are trying to establish themselves as lockdown guys in 2025. So let's start off with a guy who has already claimed the closer role in Chicago, and that's Daniel Palencia. He made his debut a couple of years ago and really was unable to establish himself because he could not control the ball. This is a guy who throws really hard, but his walk rates were obscene in his first 2 seasons. So it really felt like, okay, just needs some more seasoning. He's still really, really young. He's only 25. That's Daniel Palencia. And this year, just incredibly solid season from the closer of the Cubs as he comes in with a 1.96 ERA and a 27% strikeout rate.
Yeah, it's at least the Cubs held on to Palencia. That they got rid of Estrada, and we talked about Manuel Rodriguez earlier. At least they were able to hang on to Palencia, and they're starting to see the benefits and what he brings to the table. He's throwing upper 90s now, is sitting at 99.3, which is up from where he's been at. And not only that, but he's throwing strikes, which is, again, that's been his big thing. So, being above 50% zone rate with his fastball, again, which he's done in the past, but I think that slider, it's not the best off-speed pitch. It's more of a wrinkle. But just mixing in that slider has been a huge, addition for him and being able to throw that for strikes. So really exciting for 25-year-old reliever that the Cubs have, someone who in dynasty leagues you definitely are excited about, and even standard leagues this year. Although it does seem like Brian Presley got a save tonight, so that is something.
I got droopy dog in my ear telling me Palencia just pitched the 8th.
That's frustrating. Why? Maybe I have to see, probably the middle of the order. I don't know. Maybe they wanted him to face.
That's a good call.
Yeah, but that's a little frustrating because that did seem like Palencia had that job pretty locked down. So
it was 2-3-4 in the 8th.
Okay, so that's
all right. We're safe. We're good.
It's good, but it's still frustrating
a little bit. Yes, he's more of a high leverage arm than a closer.
Yeah.
But it really does feel like his breakout is legit, though. More strikes coming off the slider and with the fastball showing increased velocity, allowing it to be one of the best fastballs in baseball. I think Palencia seems pretty legit. And the competition has not been super tough with Presley really struggling and Porter Hodge injured and, the rest of that bullpen being what it is. So that's Daniel Palencia. Next, we have another guy who seems to have taken over a closer role, but maybe is more of a high leverage guy in the same vein as Palencia. Will Vest has really exploded for the Tigers this season. It was, and we note him here as like, I don't think it's a crazy breakout. I don't think he's taken like huge strides and become a completely different pitcher. But the big thing is like for me in my head, they had this just glob of relievers and you were like, oh, they're all like pretty good and like better than average, but none of them really stand out. That's why we had this whole I had this whole like Bo Brieski love, and now he's in the minor. So, it shows how smart I am. But Will Vest seems to have, emerged from that grouping where even guys like Tyler Holton have taken step backs, guys who was somebody maybe was thought of more highly along the veins of like Jason Foley. But now Will Vest seems to be that guy where he is like the standout reliever in Detroit. And it really makes it feel like this is the true breakout for him.
Yeah. And it's, he's getting more swing and miss this year. And he's throwing, so like kind of opposite of Palencia, that swing and miss is coming from his slider, which he's not throwing in the zone as much. He's getting more swings outside of the zone. And that might be, I think it might have even been Brieski we talked about, where a lot of these Tigers relievers, they do, I think their goal is more, they're not so worried about swing and miss. They're just worried about, locating in the zone, making hitters do something. So Vest has kind of flipped the script a little bit and is getting more swing and miss on his slider and changeup this year. He doesn't throw the changeup a lot, but 17.5% swinging strike on the changeup and 19.2% on the slider. So Yeah, that and the velo has been up on his fastball a little bit, and it's led to a huge breakout season for him. So, yeah, Brieski was the guy we kind of thought about going into the season, but
Mhm.
Vest was also in that like glob of
Yeah.
Tigers relievers
Like,
where
you
like
never know,
he
it could
could
be
be the
any of
guy
them.
too. Yeah,
Exactly.
so he just ended up being the guy, and yeah, even though he's not, he's still kind of splitting the role. I mean, he's like getting 70% of the saves.
And
About
he's been so good, it doesn't even matter.
yeah, exactly. So he's still worth. He's still been worth the ad if you've been able to add him in your leagues.
Yeah. All right. Next, we've got Ronnie Henriquez, who I noted in the preseason as somebody that I could be a breakout, could be a dark horse closer for the Marlins, but really the only thing I had supporting that was I had played with him on MLB The Show. So honestly, really, really funny to see him having some success here. It's like I really just got to like tap into that intuition more and be like, why is this guy's name ringing in my ears so beautifully? But Ronnie Henriquez, 3.13 ERA, 31% strikeout rate on the year. He does have one save. There was that moment where we all sort of freaked out a little bit. It was like Ronnie Henriquez, the closer, but he wasn't. Looks like it's Fauché. But Henriquez, how do you feel about his ability to maintain this new level?
I don't think they have a closer, so he can factor in.
Sure.
He might be factoring into some saves here and there. He's struggled a little bit recently. I'm not ready to give up on him yet or anything. I think there's a four. It's kind of I say like Lucas Erceg-ish, where he's got four really good pitches that he can throw in any situation really. The four seamer has been awesome though. That's where we want to start with that foundation. 96, and it does get really good IVB at 18 inches. 1.8 1.8 Hava as Nick loves. So
98th percentile PLV is really what
yeah,
stands out to me on that one.
right. So we'll start with the fastball, and then he's added that sweeper this year, which has been, obviously the game-changing pitch for him. That sweeper, 30% swing and strike rate.
Yeah.
So, and then he's got a changeup too. So like the changeup gives him something against lefties. There is a legit closer. There's a closer build here for Henriquez. It might not be this year because the Marlins really don't want to push anyone into that role. It seems like even Fauché, I think he got 2 saves recently, and then his usage changed. They've been all over the place, so I'm not trusting anything the Marlins do until if we see him closing out games for 2 or 3 weeks, then okay, maybe. But for Henriquez still only 24, so he's still in that like very much a dynasty worthy candidate, especially if you're in that rebuild phase of your dynasty team. But yeah, Henriquez gets a little overlooked because he's in Miami, but he's been if he was on like if he swapped roles with him in Palencia, I mean, we'd be talking about Ronnie Henriquez a lot.
Yeah. No, his stuff is really good. I'm surprised he's not talked about more because that stuff is sort of off the charts. I'd love to see him get a legit opportunity for a legit team, but maybe not for a while as he's employed by the Marlins. Next, we've got Randy Rodriguez, who he was cool last year, but man, he's like the best reliever in baseball this year. 0.61 ERA, 0.61 WHIP, 41% strikeout rate, and a 2.9% walk rate. That is obscene. He's almost got a 40% strikeout minus walk rate, just 90th percentile across the board in everything. He's just unheard of. And I mean, is it really like huge changes to his stuff? I mean, the fastball is being used just about as much. The stuff is honestly like worse. So I don't know. I don't know where he's finding the success from, but it's been incredible.
I mean, command has been better.
That'll do it.
And not just the walk rate, but being able to locate his 4-seamer more up in the zone, it looks like. He did struggle today. I know he got a blown save today, or a loss, or I don't know if it was a blown save, but
Thanks, bad timing.
It's Coors. We'll blame it on Coors and move on. But yeah, it would have been nice to see him get that save because he is definitely the Giants' best. And the Giants have a really good bullpen. We talked about it last week, but I think Randy Rodriguez is their best reliever. The numbers clearly show that. Nothing really has changed outside of the command. Like the stuff he showed this in spurts last year. I remember he was frustrating for me to rank on like the holds list because it was like he would go on like a 3-week, stretch where he was like dominating. I'm like, okay, I'm going to push him, into the top 40 and then like just get, blown up in a game or two and then get sent down. And there was just no consistency with him last year. But this year, I mean, today we saw some cracks. I know there was some defensive issues too, because some of those runs were unearned. But yeah, I'm all in on Randy Rodriguez moving forward. I don't know about in standard leagues because I do think Duvall still is going to be their primary closer. And there's also Randy Rodriguez can't pitch back-to-back days. Or I guess he's just not going to pitch back-to-back days that much. So temper expectations in save leagues, but in holds leagues, Rodriguez is I moved him in the top 5 today. So yeah.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been really dope. I think you're right. It's not like a crazy change. It's just he's gotten better. It's just he throws that slider for strikes more, and he's able to control his fastball better.
Exactly.
So yeah, pretty dope from Randy Rodriguez. In a similar vein, next we've got Abner Uribe, who's been able to take his incredible stuff that he previously was unable to control and turn it around, posting a sub 10% walk rate this year, which is really all we wanted to see from Abner Uribe and has led to his ascension in that Brewers bullpen. And we can quantify that by telling you that Abner Uribe is sporting a 1.39 ERA and a 33% strikeout rate.
Yeah, like you said, that's really that walk rate is everything with him, and it was high in the minors. And I didn't have really any expectations for him this season, especially after last year. There was a lot
so bad last year.
It was between the meltdown and the knee injury, and we were all hyped about Craig Yoho as the Brewers' next thing.
Yeah.
And Uribe's still here. He still throws hard. CSW at 36.1% is a huge, and I think a lot of that is because that walk rate's come down. He's throwing more strikes this year. Hitters are, his stuff is.
Oh my gosh, it's in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of that, and it's like
umpire. Did you see he was trying to hit me? Did you see how close that one got to me?
Right. I mean,
right down the middle.
The sinker is 10% up. The zone rate's up 10% from last year. The slider zone rate's up 14%. So huge. Yeah, he's just being able to throw that slider 48% in the zone. Huge difference maker for him. Getting called strikes on it. He's got a 22% swing to strike rate on his slider and a 22% called strike rate. So it's like
50-50. You're getting the CSW.
Yeah, and it's just that sinker slider combo. That's all he needs. He'll be a closer one day, probably.
Probably next year.
It could be next year. Yeah, I mean Trevor McGill could get hurt. You never know.
Traded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put into the 8th inning. All right. Next, we've got Brian Baker, who has really taken off for the Orioles. In the past, he had shown some glimpses of being solid, but this is another level for Brian Baker. 2.79 ERA and a 35% strikeout rate on the season makes Brian Baker a standout option in the Orioles bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the Orioles' best reliever all year. And someone who, he's shown flashes before. I know he goes to like Cressy Sports Performance. He does a lot of work in the off season to, work on his, his
fastball is completely different, but same velo.
Yeah. He's finally found what works for him. It was surprise. Even still, I remember he was projected to be on the AAA roster to start the season. I'm like, there's no way this guy. And I mean, showed something last year. I know he has a 5.01 ERA in 2024, but the whip was good. Still decent strikeout rate. Not a lot of walks either. But yeah, this year just a different animal with a 30% K minus walk rate almost. Whips under 1. XFIP and XFIP's under 2.5. Just a huge difference between his four-seamer has been great. The slider's been awesome. But the changeup too, that changeup's really where I'm like, okay, this is the real potential. I know he's older and they have Felix Bautista, but Baker is this dude is a closer in the making potentially. And like we talked about, if Bautista doesn't if they give him a break, if they give him an IL stint, or he doesn't. I know they're playing well now, so maybe they'll make a push for the playoffs. But if Baker does become a closer, he's a must-add in every format,
Yeah,
easily.
totally. It looks like he's improved every single one of his pitches this year. The
Yeah.
four-seamer has improved IVB. The slider is being thrown out of the zone more and getting more chases. And then the changeup is being thrown in the zone more. So he's clearly having more ability to throw that pitch for strikes. But I think it's huge that the slider he's using more as a swinging strike pitch, because usually you want your breakers to get swings and misses.
All
And
right.
last year, Baker was an 8.7% swinging strike rate on the slider as he threw it in the zone over 50% of the time. So it seemed like he was trying to get called strikes with it when it's a pitch that he needs to throw off the plate. So I think he's finally figuring that out this year. And now he can rely on his improved fastball in the zone to get strikes. And it's just all
And
coming up good for Baker.
the changeup, so in the changeup zone rate is 54.6 this
Exactly.
year. Last year it was 31.4.
Yeah,
So being able to
huge.
throw that for strikes, and I mean, you can tell like there was a clear effort in his four-seamer to try to get that IVB up, and he has, and it's working. It's showing.
Yeah, pretty awesome. All right, next we've got Brendan Little, who is really the epitome of a breakout reliever. Last year, just so underwhelming, not somebody I would have ever pegged as being talked about multiple times, basically every podcast on In the Pen in 2025. Last year, you had a 3.74 ERA, 1.31 whip, an 18% strikeout rate, and a 9.8% walk rate. Nothing really special from Little, but this year, 2.10 ERA, 36% strikeout rate. He's walking more batters, but he has been incredible. And I don't know how you feeling about Brendan Little keeping this
Yeah,
up.
like the walks are a little concerning. So you might not get the best whip from him, but ERA is nice. Strikeout rate, obviously, we will take that all day. And he's up to 12 holds now on the season. He's been their top, either if not their top setup man, at least their top lefty. I cautiously optimistic he should be fine just based off the swing and miss stuff. And we did break him down a little bit. I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I feel. Um, the curveball he's up that usage big time, and that's he's got 28% swing and strike rate on it, so makes sense why you would throw that about 50% of the time. So he's really kind of a curveball sinker guy who mixes in a cutter occasionally, and last year he was more sinker heavy. So yeah, I think that curveball heavy approach, obviously that's why we see a little bit higher walk rate, but that's why we see the bigger swing and strike rate. I think the trade-off's worth it for him. So
Totally.
I think he'll be fine. There's probably going to be some headaches because of that, curveball heavy approach and the walk rate, but I think he'll be still worth a top 10, 15, holds league option right now.
Yeah, because he's one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball as well. So
Yeah, that's
even
sinker.
when
Yeah,
he is not able to get swings and misses, those balls are
right.
ending up on the ground. So pretty dope from Brendan Little this year. Maybe amongst the guys we've talked about, I like have the least faith in his stuff, but when you
Yeah,
look at the whole package, it's like, okay, yeah. I can see how like this is going to keep working throughout the year. You get a lot of ground balls, you get a lot of swinging strikes, you don't walk too many guys. It's really just like, just don't let the walk rate get out of control, and he's going to be
right.
really great this year.
12%'s like kind of the max, I feel like, for
Exactly.
like good to be like a
It's,
really good
and you got to
leader
strike out as
reliever.
many guys as he is.
Right, exactly. And you have a strikeout rate over 30%. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
you can live with this. I mean, Devin Williams had like a walk rate of 12% forever. So it's definitely doable.
All right. Next, we've got Louis Varland, who has really broken out for the Twins this year. We had been waiting for him to really get that opportunity in the bullpen where he can really establish himself in a role that he is knowing that he's going to hold the whole year. So it's been really cool to see from him. 30% strikeout rate, 2.45 ERA for Louis Varland in 2025.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, that increased velo going from starter to reliever. And what was it, 2 playoffs ago where he kind of flashed out of the bullpen, and then or maybe not just the playoffs, but like
Yeah. I
the
think it was
stretch
23.
run 23, right? So yeah, just I mean, I don't think he's gonna be a starter again. He's kind of going that Griffin Jacks route where he's just too good in the bullpen to move him out of there. Yeah, I have no concerns with him moving forward. I guess maybe health wise, like holding up, he's gonna have close to 50 games pitched, 50 outings. So something he's not exactly used to as a starter. That can be tricky, but innings wise, I mean, he'll be under where he used to be. So he could be fine.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like he's ditched the cutter that he threw 30% of the time last year, and he's just not even throwing it anymore, which is cool because it sucked. He
Yeah.
gave up a lot of it gave up pretty good it gave up a lot of hard contact. It had a 15th percentile PLV. Not a good pitch. Definitely a good pitch to cut. And then he's just incorporated his curveball more, which is a very, very good pitch, while adding a couple miles per hour of velocity to his fastball. So it all feels super legit for Louis Varland. Next, we've got Garrett Cleavinger, who's become an integral member of the Rays bullpen as their top southpaw. But really the interesting thing from Cleavinger is that, he wasn't an enormous strikeout guy. We saw glimpses of it all the way back in 2022 where he eclipsed 30%. But this year, striking out a third of the batters he faces. But then the biggest thing is then just he's not walking anybody. This is a guy who's in the past always double-digit walk rates. Garrett Cleavinger this year 5% walk rate to pair with that career high strikeout rate, or I guess just about career high.
Yeah, so career low walk rate and almost a career high K rate.
Great combo.
That's what you're looking for. And yeah, everything match. I mean, he's been a guy who's in the past we've been kind of, or at least I've been kind of in on, but again, it's just consistency hasn't been there for Cleavinger, and this year it's been a different story. Only 8 holds. I guess I would like to see more holds if you're in a holds league, but he's still worth the roster spot, I would say, given the ratios and strikeout numbers, and he should factor into more holds in Tampa Bay, as he's their best reliever outside of, probably better than Pete Fairbanks has been this year, honestly. So another guy, another lefty with, sinker as his primary fastball, but he doesn't get the same amount of ground balls as Brendan Little gets. So there is some risk, especially in Tampa with that ballpark right now. But the slider and sweeper get a ton of swing and misses, so I'm not too concerned with them. There might be a little, maybe some ups and downs in the summer months in Tampa, but I'm pretty confident Cleavinger will be a good holds league option, rest of the year.
I mean, it's not like even before this breakout, he wasn't rosterable. Before this, he was still very solid for the Rays. I mean, not like a top 15 holds guy, but definitely somebody that could be relied upon as
6 saves last year.
High leverage. That's pretty good. Yeah.
6
and he wasn't like incredible. So it's cool to see
7
him
wins,
pitching
15
much
holds.
better.
Right.
And maintaining this better high leverage role in Tampa Bay. Next, we've got Ryan ZEFERJAHN, who we discussed a lot pretty early on. I think he was one of the more notable young pitchers in the league that we were sort of getting excited about because he seemed to be really unlucky. That still seems to be the case a little bit, but maybe not as much. I think early on it was like, okay, Ryan ZEFERJAHN is the most unlucky pitcher in baseball. He needs to be rostered everywhere. He's going to turn it around. I don't think it's that extreme right now. He is giving up a lot of home runs and a lot of batted balls. But I still think he's solid. It's just, I don't think he's going to be, the future closer for the Angels.
The strikeouts have like plummeted. Yeah. I think he's solid, probably more of like a setup middle relief option. You'd rather him as a middle relief option. But right now, the Angels don't have much as far as setup options go. So he's in there with Reed Detmers, and that's kind of the 2 guys I would trust in LA right now behind Kenley Jansen.
Yeah. Speaking of Reed Detmers, that's our last guy. Great transition. He has been incredible since shifting over to the bullpen and recently got his second save of the season. Kenley Jansen had pitched on back-to-back days and in 4 of the past 5. So it made sense that somebody was filling in, but I said on first pitch, I expect it to be Ryan ZEFERJAHN because Detmers had pitched the day before. But turns out it's not ZEFERJAHN, and it's been Detmers, and he's been super dope this year. I mean, the ERA and WHIP are inflated, but he seems to be.
Yeah.
Huh? It's the BABIP?
He had like 2 or 3 like outings that were just really bad.
He's got a 400 BABIP. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he had a couple outings that blew up his ERA and WHIP, but and the BABIP's crazy high. But the stuff, my PLV loves the stuff. Stuff Plus loves his stuff still. It's really that I'm hoping he has the Chris Bubich arc in him because he still should be the rotation someday. I still believe in him as a starter. But if not, he's obviously shown right now that he can be an elite reliever.
Mhm.
Just where the fastball plays up out of the bullpen. Good pitch metrics on it. And then the curveball, slider, curveball getting a 30% called strike rate. So that curveball in the zone a lot more, getting called strikes. That's kind of his strike getting breaking ball, and then the slider's more the whiff getter. So two good breakers and a good fastball. What more can you ask for?
He already had good stuff before moving to the bullpen, and now with the improved fastball, his stuff is even better. Right. And if our listeners are really concerned, they're like, I can't pick up a guy with a 6+ ERA over his last 14 appearances, which encapsulate 15 innings. Reed Detmers has pitched to a 0.60 ERA to go with why did that start getting slow now? A 1.13 whip and a 39% strikeout rate to go with a 12% walk rate. So 27% strikeout minus walk rate there for Reed Detmers across his last 14 appearances to go with a sub-1 ERA. I think he is super legit, super dope. I don't expect the Angels to move him back into the rotation this year. So I think you can be pretty confident that you'll get a great reliever throughout the rest of the year. But that will wrap up our review of the breakouts from earlier in the season. We'll definitely have some more to talk about later in the season as well. We'll have to revisit these names to see if our analysis was correct. But Rick, why don't you go ahead and plug anything you're working on and your social media?
Yeah, we kind of ran out of time there, but also just want to plug Gabe SPEIER because he's been awesome.
Yes.
38.1% K rate, 39% CSW, second best in baseball. Just not getting a ton of holds, but whatever. He's been awesome other than, not getting holds. So Gabe SPEIER, another name to keep an eye on. You can find me, though, on socials at I am Rick Graham. And as always, working on the 3 lists each week, which is closing time on Tuesdays, hold up on Thursdays, and save plus hold on Friday.
Nice. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. You can follow the pod at In the Pen Pod. You can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com. You can catch me on the First Pitch podcast Monday through Thursday. You can catch me on the In the Pen podcast on Fridays, and you can find more of my work over at baseballhq.com. But that'll do it for this episode 124 of In the Pen. We'll talk to you all next week.